America Can't Breathe. A sermon for June 7th, 2020. America can't breathe. In Minneapolis, a police officer kneeled on the neck of George Floyd, whose hands were cuffed behind his back. Police officer kneeled on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. George Floyd cried out that he could not breathe, and the officer continued to kneel on his neck. George Floyd cried out for mercy repeatedly, and the officer continued to kneel on his neck. George Floyd went unconscious due to the lack of oxygen, and the officer continued to kneel on his neck, asphyxiating him, killing him. America can't breathe. In the streets of our nation's capital and all across our country, militarized police fire canisters of tear gas into crowds. Under the Geneva Convention, the use of tear gas is banned in warfare, but it is employed here against protesters and marchers, causing their lungs to burn and causing them to choke and gasp for air. America can't breathe. America can't breathe. Through the years, many times in sermons I've shared the following etymology. The word for spirit, in Greek, in Latin, and in Hebrew, is the same as the word for breath. The Greek word pneuma, the Latin word espiritu, the Hebrew word ruach, they all mean spirit and they all mean breath. I'm not trying to be clever or cute with metaphor. All I'm saying is that if church is about spiritual things, if church is about things of the Spirit, it has to be about breath. And it has to be concerned with those who can't breathe. And it has to be concerned with those who are being prevented from breathing. Which is to say that the work of challenging racism in ourselves, in our institutions, in our community, in our nation is spiritual work. It's breath work. Which is to say that the work of ending white supremacy is spiritual work. It's breath work. Which is to say that the work of opposing knees on necks and chokeholds and tear gassing people in the streets, those things at minimum, the work of opposing those things is spiritual work. It is breath work, literally. Which is to say, as well, that the work of ending racial health disparities, for COVID-19 is a disease which attacks the lungs and disproportionately affects and disproportionately kills African Americans. Which is to say that the work of ending racial health disparities is spiritual work, is breath work. And the work of environmental witness to keep the air clean is spiritual work, is breath work. For air pollution is a form of environmental racism that disproportionately affects people of color. And so that is spiritual work and breath work. Pneuma, spirit, breath. Espiritu, spirit, breath. Ruach, spirit, breath. When I breathe in, just as long as I have breath. Friends, in all truth, it is a struggle to find the words to speak in times like these. Just as it's hard to have found the words to speak following the murders at Mother Emanuel in Charleston, just as it's hard to have found the words to speak following the murderous hatred in Charlottesville, it is hard to find the words to speak to mark the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. It's hard to find the words to speak to the depth of grief, the depth of pain, the depth of injustice, the depth of outrage. It's hard because words are inadequate. For these moments lay bare the undeniable truth that the systems of our society, the policing system, the legal system, the criminal justice system, the educational system, the healthcare system, the political system, the financial system. These moments lay bare the undeniable truth that all the systems of our society arose out of and were shaped by racism and were designed to perpetuate white supremacy. It is hard to think about how much work needs to be done, how much reconstruction there needs to be. And it's hard to think about how much work it takes to unlearn racism and unlearn white supremacy in myself. How much work it takes to commit to being a co-conspirator for justice. And it's hard to find the words to speak to events like these, because to tell you the truth, nobody particularly needs to hear from me right now. This is a time when we are being told to listen more than speak and to amplify voices other than our own. When I listen to people of color who I know in my own life, what they have told me over and over again is that what happened to George Floyd or to Breonna Taylor or to Ahmaud Arbery could have happened to them, could have happened to anyone they know. My friend tells a story of his brother being roughed up by the police, roughed up so badly that he needed 3 reconstructive surgeries to put himself back together. Another friend tells the story of being routinely harassed and intimidated by the police as she was growing up. Another friend tells of being stalked on a public trail, of worrying in that time that he might wind up like Ahmaud Arbery, chased down and killed. A mother and a father tell me that they fear every time their African American son leaves the house. They wonder if he will come back. A mother tells of the time the police were called on her African American teenage son for playing in the front lawn. When we listen, we know that what happened in Minneapolis could happen anywhere. And so it is so important. It is so important to do this work, to weed out racism, to ensure that no more lives have to live in fear. My prayer is this: may the protests fully become an uprising, and may the uprising fully become a revolution. May the streets remain full of marchers and protesters and activists of all colors until real and lasting and systemic change is made. May each person and each organization saying that Black Lives Matter, each person and each organization issuing statements in this time condemning racism, May each person and each organization fully commit to dismantling systems of oppression and commit to doing the long-term work of creating real, structural, and systemic change. May those of us committed not get distracted. May we stay in the struggle, just as long as our heart beats, just as long as we have breath. And may each of us who can breathe be transformed by that pneuma, that ruach, that spirit, that breath. May we, to use the poetic imagery of Ross Gay, plant those seeds that grow into a plant that helps us all to breathe. May we, in the words of the prophet Isaiah, be given breath and spirit, so that former things may pass away and new things may live. This is my prayer for you. It is my prayer for myself. It is a prayer for all of us. Just as long as I have breath, just as long as we have breath, let us answer yes to truth, yes to justice, and yes to love. Amen.